the Hungaroring?
I don't know. I wish I knew. Yeah, I don't know. It's just not been very successful for me in the past. It's probably something with my driving style. I've got to work a little bit harder compared to other tracks.
Formula One is heading to Hungary, and we have a lot of good expectations from one of the most legendary circuits in the history of the sport. Apart from the renewal that the track has seen, the weather should be a crucial factor for the team's setups, with some of them bringing upgrade packages to battle the weaknesses shown so far. But have some teams already given up? And more importantly, what are the expectations that we should have after the FIA's disaster class in Spa that threatened to be repeated here in Hungary as well? The F1 caravan arrived at the last race of the first half of the season, and I don't think we have a better starter for this video than the weather forecast. When it comes to Hungary, we cannot forget the legendary 2021 start, when Hamilton was the only one on the grid with the intermediate tyres. But at the end of the day, repeating this in 2025 might be on the horizon as well. All things considered, the weather should play a huge role in how the teams are going to set up the car, with Spa showing that just because rain is on the radar, it doesn't mean you're going to race on it. Be that as it may, there are certain teams that we shouldn't be expecting too much from, such as Ferrari. The disastrous weekend in Spa has given us a proper indication that they are already giving up on this season and will listen to Hamilton's wishes, focus on 2026, and develop the car for the next season. Challenging for race wins is now considered to be an impossible mission for the Maranello base squad. And considering the fact that they've entered the 2025 season as favourites, this is truly a disappointment for every Formula One fan. But I don't think Ferrari has anyone to blame but themselves. They've brought the car to where it is right now, and from this point on, Hamilton and Leclerc have literally no goals in front of them. P2 in the Constructors' Championship is probably the best they could aim for, and when it comes to the 7-time world champion, he has some personal goals he would like to extend here. In Hungaroring, Hamilton is the undisputed champion. He's dominated ever since entering the sport in 2007 with 8 race wins, 9 pole positions, and the fastest lap record at the circuit. Even more interesting than that, Hamilton has led at least 1 lap in every Hungarian GP he's participated in except for 2 occasions. 2010, when he retired due to a transmission failure, and 2015, when he dropped positions early and never regained the lead even though he started from pole position. This is, however, something that he would find extremely hard to achieve again with Ferrari. The hope is very low because of the track's nature and the dominance that McLaren was ahead of them. And from this point of view, it does seem like the only factor that could threaten their reign, and it's Max Verstappen. Again, it's worth noting that the championship fight is now only relevant between the 2 McLaren drivers, but when it comes to the 4-time world champion, I think you should expect a battle until the last lap of the race, and Hungaroring is one of his favourite circuits, despite the shenanigans that have showcased the Mad Max version in front of our eyes as he battled Hamilton in Turn 1 in a very reckless manner. But things have changed drastically now. Verstappen understood better than anyone else that he isn't nearly as competitive as he should be to challenge both McLaren drivers, and that he'd need a miracle to win the race. Even one win won't give him a lot of hope considering how far the working base squad are in both championships, but at least in this race we'll head with one clear thought in our mind. We cannot speculate about the future of the 4-time world champion anymore. He is part of Red Bull, and that would remain to be the case in 2026 as well. But the optimism for 2025 stretches out to the extent of Helmut Marko saying that Verstappen is still in the fight for the championship in 2025, and they haven't given up just yet. Part of that proof is the upgrades that keep arriving in RB21, and it seems like certain track-specific upgrades are prepared for the Australians' challenger. But from this point of view, I don't really think they're going to do wonders for Max. The only satisfaction he could find in Hungary could be splitting the McLaren drivers. Of course, it would be much more satisfying if the rain mixed up the entire grid and therefore enable Max to show what he's made of. But after what we saw in Spa, I highly doubt the FIA would allow the drivers to race under torrential rain conditions. Verstappen has an excellent record in Hungary, but with the current version of his car he's driving, I'm not quite sure he has a shot at Piastri or Norris. But on the other hand, these two would definitely give their best to push each other to the absolute maximum, as now Piastri has extended his lead over Norris to 16 points. It's not really a safe margin given the fact that anything could change in the span of one lap. But when you have two very competitive teammates, a crash or a mistake is very easy to happen, allowing Verstappen or anyone who is behind them to close the edge a little bit. Norris is entering the Hungarian GP with a little bit more self-confidence. He finished on the podium twice in the past 2 years and will be keen to silence his critics with the third victory in 4 races. I don't think there is anyone who could challenge him to do this other than Piastri, but again, when rain comes into question, there isn't much that needs to be addressed. Just look at how the dominance of the MCL39 is putting them in front with no other competitors in sight. Yes, I do hope that Ferrari and Mercedes can hop in the mix, especially with the colder conditions favoring the Brackley-based squad. But let's not forget one very important thing. We are now headed in a McLaren-dominated era, and in Hungary, I don't expect that someone is going to challenge them on a track that's suiting their car massively. The ups and downs on the Mercedes and Ferrari cars are just too much to predict, and the only factor that could make the Hungaroring an interesting race to watch besides the rain is Max Verstappen. However, if we keep ourselves in the realistic window of things, I do not believe that there is a single team out there who could be on their task to beat the MCL39s on pure merit. There is one condition in which that is possible, both of them taking each other out. Resembling the Barcelona 2016 Mercedes situation between Rosberg and Hamilton, of course Norris and Piastri know very well that an incident could happen sooner rather than later, with their racing maneuvers being a tad bit too dangerous. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that you could do regarding this matter. It's bound to happen, and last year here in Hungary we've seen that miserable strategy is what cost Norris a win and dear 8 points lost to Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship. I sincerely hope McLaren have fixed their issues with communication and strategy, because if both of the drivers are again very close to each other and the weather is changing, then it would be very difficult to pull the plug as to which driver should go to the pit lane first. Usually you tend to give that luxury to the leading one, but if he's stuck behind traffic on cold tires, then the second one will have a bit more freedom to change his tires immediately after and take the lead of the race. And let's not forget the Verstappen factor either. He will be more than happy to separate the McLaren drivers if given the proper chance. One thing is for sure, performance upgrades aren't to be expected primarily because all teams are now focused on 2026. McLaren has set the precedent way too high, and I think the 2025 season is more or less finished in terms of fighting for the championship. Unless something crazy happens and the papaya drivers take themselves out on the track. Nevertheless, with changing conditions, we should be having an extremely exciting race in Hungary. So, with all this in mind, what do you think about of all the challenges that are ahead of us in the Hungaroring? And more importantly, who is your clear favorite to win if rain mixes up the conditions? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that appears on your screen now.